Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video as the Marvel Select review train rolls on with the Disney Store exclusive Spectacular Spider-Man. Marvel Select Spider-Man, can he do the things that the Marvel Legends Spider-Man can? Well, in this video we're gonna find out because as requested, it's an action figure comparison with the Marvel Legends Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure series Spider-Man, commonly known as Pizza Spidey. So you likely know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the various aspects of each version, comparing sculpt, deco, accessories, and articulation. Then at the end of the video, you guys declare a victor in the comments below. So side by side, and the most immediate point of distinction is the size difference, with the Marvel Legends on the left there being a 6-inch scale line and the Marvel Select on the right of the screen being a 7-inch scale one. Then of course there is quite a difference between the shade of blue that they each use. But beyond that, you gotta think that Diamond, in making their Select, had the Hasbro's Legends version in their sights, as they are eerily similar. Yet a subtle difference requires closer inspection of the Select, as its webbing detail of Spidey's costume is rendered in the sculpt, with all those webbing lines all being inset into the sculpt, then the deco of the black lines laid over it. It's certainly nice seeing that level of effort being put in, and it reminds me nostalgically of how Toy Biz often treated their Spider-Man action figures. Yeah, if I was Diamond, I'd ultimately think in the balance of effort and reward. Does the effort pay off? In that, does it make it better than the Legends version, where its detail of the webbing is simply applied in the deco? I'm not sure it does, at least where the spider webbing is concerned, but where I think the effort in the sculpt pays off is in the spider symbol on the Select's chest, which is nicely and very slightly raised in relief, as is the spider symbol on his back. For their Legends version, Hasbro reused their earlier Superior Spider-Man somewhat, so from the ground up you can see their legs are identical. But then when it gets to the torso for the Spider-Man on the left, they stretch the torso out, making him taller than his Superior counterpart. To my eye, that has made him a bit disproportionate, with his legs now being too short for his body. Alternatively, the Select version has disproportionate legs, well, maybe not the entire legs per se, but more his upper legs. If you look at those, they do seem quite elongated, setting his knees quite low to the ground. Now in each case, those are relatively small gripes, but it's one of those gripes that once you see it, you can't unsee it. A curious defect I have with my Legends Spidey is if you look at the interior of his lower left arm there, it's been left the red of the plastic where it should have been painted blue as per his right arm. Due to the nature of Spider-Man's costume design, with it being red on the outside of his arms and then blue on the inside, Hasbro have used red pegs which do match the outside, but then the red pegs do stand out against the blue on the inside of the arms, and you might be like, Glenn, how can you resolve that? Well, with the Select, they've used red pegs too to match the outside of the arm, but then on the inside of the arm, they've painted those red pegs blue to match the blue of the interior of the arm. It's just an instance of showing a higher level of attention to detail. While at first glance they are much the same, taking a closer look reveals the distinction between the head sculpts. And I do prefer the Legends one on the left there, the eyes of the mask being closer together, making it both more expressive and just a better match for if you imagine where Peter's eyes would be under that mask. Then turning to the profile, and again for me the Legends head cuts a better contour, with the slightly more pointedness of the nose conveying a better idea of a living, breathing face under there, and that's exactly what I look for in a Spider-Man head sculpt, and to that end I just find the Select one more lacking and just slightly more balloonish. Then both come with the added bonus of interchangeable heads. The Select one took some wrestling first time I interchanged it, but then was fine. So the Legends one half unmasked and the Select completely unmasked, and with that distinction it's hard to pick which head is best. The half unmasked one is certainly more unique, with this to my knowledge being the first ever one Spider-Man has got. Yet unmasked Peter Parker heads are themselves few and far between, and good ones even more so, and I'd certainly say this is the very best Peter Parker head I've seen. Unfortunately, mine does have some grubby marks to its cheekbones, but beyond that, while it doesn't have the fun-loving, toothy smile of the Legends Spidey, I do see a subtle, wry smile going on that also fits his personality. The half unmasked head comes in handy for making out with Mary Jane and also for eating the slice of pizza which he comes with as an accessory and which is how he's come to be christened as Pizza Spider-Man. And coincidentally, that's the same smile I have on my face when I chow down on my Domino's stuffed crust. Alas, no pizza for the Marvel Select Spider-Man, however he does come with an accessory of his own which is a bit more iconic of Spider-Man. And that's his camera, and it's a really nice sculpt. I like the deco on it too, with the white of the flash and then some glossy black paint for the camera lens. I do however wish that the strap was articulated, but hey, that's setting my expectations a little too high. And concerning its strap out of package, it certainly isn't the best fit for hanging round his neck. Then equally ill-fitting slung over his shoulder. There, better. So what I've done here is take the camera accessory and I've left it sitting on my space heater for a couple of minutes. Equally, you could use a hairdryer or run it under some hot water. And what that does is soften the plastic of the strap enough so that you can kind of remold it into more of a naturalistic shape to fit over his neck or over his shoulder. Now to bring Pizza Spidey back to answer a question I was asked. Well, I mean, you can fit it onto him, but with the size difference between these two lines, it depends how realistic you think the Legends Spidey looks with a really big camera. I guess it's not laughable. Which brings us to another question. Well, yes, it can fit on the Pizza Spidey, but a better question to ask yourself is, should it fit on the Pizza Spidey? As with the camera, it's a bit easier to reason out the difference in scale with, hey, maybe Peter has a really big camera. But the logic behind Peter having a really big head is a lot harder to find. To go with its unmasked head, the Select also comes with this mask as an accessory, which I think is a really cool accessory to have. And this is where his interchangeable hands come in, which I'll get to, but first let's finish talking about the mask. And here I'm using his gripping interchangeable hands to wedge the mask into them, so there he can appear as if he's just pulled that mask off or is about to place it on, whichever you prefer. But back to the interchangeable hands, and these gripping ones that the Select comes with are unique to the Select. Then of course they both come with the infamous Webb shooting hands, so he can either sling his way across the New York City skyline or perhaps web up an adversary. Or we could leave it to the two of them to decide the victor of this comparison themselves by duking it out with their interchangeable clenched fists. Now looking at articulation, and the heads of both of them rotate side to side, they're both able to look down. I'd say the Legends one a little more, and then they look up. Again, the Legends one slightly more. At the shoulder, their respective arms rotate, and then they hinge up, the Legends one more so. Then the Legends Spidey has that butterfly armpit joint, which moves his arm backwards and forwards. Then both have upper arm rotation and double jointed elbows, which I'm fairly certain marks a first for Marvel Select. Then both have rotation at the wrist and the hands are hinged, moving up and down. Both have waist rotation, and then additionally the Select has a rotating diaphragm joint, whereas the Legends has an ab crunch which moves forwards and backwards, as does the Select's diaphragm joint, but not to the same range as the Legends ab crunch. At the hips, surprisingly, the legs of the Select one move out further to the side, and then they move forward only very slightly less than the Legends one, and they move, well, neither of them really move far back. Both have upper leg rotation, although the upper leg really tends to stick to the ball joint of the hip on the Select. Then both have double jointed knees, and the Select rotates at the top of his red booties, whereas the Legends one doesn't, and they both have hinged feet moving backwards and forwards, and they both have those ankle rocker pivots that I love. And taking advantage of those ankle pivots, this is where the superior hip articulation of the Marvel Select pays off, as Jean-Claude Van Damme, eat your heart out. This Marvel Select Spider-Man is pretty much able to sweep the floor with his spider junk. So while not universally all its joints match or better the posability of the Legends Spidey, some do, meaning rarely, the Select is able to be posed in ways this Legends one simply can't. I've heard Diamond Select in interview talk about the contractual limitations they face with articulation, likely so they don't infringe upon Hasbro's licensing, yet in this instance it seems those limitations have been relaxed, making posability between the two lines much more of an even playing field. As to which is best, let me know in the comments below what you think. For me, this is such a tough one, as they're both so similar in many different ways. Perhaps my preference of the Legends head sculpt just gives it a slight edge? Yet if, like me, you do pick the Legends one, we should all stand and applaud Diamond. Well, go on. And I say that as a more apt comparison that champions this new Marvel Select Spider-Man is comparing it with this older Marvel Select Spider-Man. I've often touted the improving articulation over time of Marvel Selects, yet here in sculpt we're seeing equal leaps forward. I mean, just look at that head sculpt, it's deformed! And in light of that, I can't begrudge Diamond titling this Spider-Man as spectacular, as that's just what it is. Finally, time for one last question. There you go, Spider-Man in a symbiote sandwich. I do believe the Marvel Select Venom and Carnage are both being re-released and are up for pre-order on various sites, so you may want to jump on this Spider-Man now to go with those. Anyway, click this video to see how the Marvel Select Black Panther fared against his Marvel Legends counterpart, and if you could please give this video right now a big thumbs up, I would really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye.